Hi, it's Tiffany Lorraine, the Resilient Mother, with another episode of the Resilient Mother podcast. Today, I have a special guest, Misty GIlbert, and we're going to talk about resilience and unique. And she has a unique perspective on resilience and what it takes to persevere and make the most out of life. And so we're going to talk about that today. Misty, thank you for being here, and please tell us more about you.
Thank you, Tiffany. I appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you and your audience. I'm very passionate about transformation and from my own story and the work that I do with other people. I'm a transformational coach. I did a TEDx talk January 2019 on the art of authenticity, how to show the real you. And my heart is to help people to encourage, support, and inspire them to overcome their fear, shame, guilt, and regret, which I feel are the 4 pillars that hold most people back.
Oh, I love that. Authenticity really aligns with me, as I want people to have resilient transformations to live their truth, find their best self, and be able to maintain it under all circumstances. But I think that starts with a level of awareness. Do you believe that's the place where you start?
I would say, I always say it's a level of acknowledgement. So yeah, I would say awareness is part of it. The acknowledgement of where you are, the reality of your situation and your circumstances. You can't begin by ignoring what's your reality.
And how would you define resilience?
Gosh, there's several ways I would define it. I would say first by embracing your pain, because you can't change anything or move forward in anything that you continue to ignore or are at war with. You have to be able to make peace with it. So accepting and embracing your pain and seeing it as a gift and not as an enemy is a huge part of having resilience. You can't run from it either. Resilience is staying the course and being really engaged and focused on the now and what do you need to transition to move forward and pivot.
Yeah. So not stopping and finding a way, but in a way that maintains your health and your authenticity and your truth and stepping into it. I love that. What makes you resilient?
My life circumstances, the number of challenges I've had forced upon me, if you will, whether you want to refer to it as a card in my deck of cards that God gave me or just simply life happening. My path has always been to face my pain head on and to figure out a way to go through the pain and let my pain, again, like I said earlier, become my power. So most people let their pain deter them. They get sidetracked, they numb, they avoid, they blame, anything but to self-reflect and to do the inward work is to asking yourself questions. Why is this painful? Can it be easier? Can it be lighter? Or is it going to be this painful and I need to accept that? What is the message the pain has for me? Because through the pain, we actually grow strength, we grow empowerment, and the gift that it gives us of a clearer perspective of who we are today and where we want to go and the transition and the gap that's there and what is needed from us and what we need to face. Like, is it fear, doubt, insecurities, other type of baggage that is impacting us being able to be resilient and face our pain? Or are we just simply asking for a way out because we don't want to have to face it?
And that goes along with the next question about why is it important to live your truth? When we first talked, we both talked about how we didn't feel we grew up in families that let us embrace ourselves authentically or live our truth, and how we had to transform ourselves and find ourselves in a way. Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, I think truth is an interesting concept, especially when you're brought up in a religious world or, paradigm where the Bible is the way, the truth, and the life, and it's hardcore black and white, strong beliefs as to what is truth. And that's the way I was raised. I was raised very much in a religious focus. So understanding what is truth, I think, is a learned aspect of life. Learning to trust the still small voice within inside of you, not just what government or parental or religious affiliates tell you, but like that still small voice inside of you is guiding you. But when you're taught that you can't trust yourself, you can't trust your emotions, you can't trust your thoughts, you can't trust your feelings, that makes you always looking for external validation outside of you to support who you are and who you're becoming. But then it also makes you second guess yourself, because if you think something's truth, but then something feels a little bit off, how do you realign and figure out, is this truth or is this just another answer that might not be what I want to align or be congruent with? So I think finding your own truth is by intentionally looking at, is this something I believe, and why do I believe it? Who taught me this? Is it something that got me where I wanted to be at a certain point in my life, but it no longer is? I think sometimes truth, evolves, because I'm a faith-based person, but I'm not a religious person anymore. I believe God gives us truth. God shows us truth, and he enlightens us as we are willing to step into more truth. So the truth that I have today might not be the full truth. There might be more exposed to me as I'm ready, willing, or able to receive it.
Yeah, I could not put that better myself. I really like how you put that. Do you have a particular time you remember stepping into your resilience or your truth that was really that transformation that you now coach people on yourself?
There's a couple pivoting points. One of the first one was when I made the decision to leave my parents' house. And that was based on the fact that it was enormous risk. I was being alienated from the family, was no longer firstborn, no longer going to be in the will, all these things. And I wanted freedom so bad. I wanted to pursue a life of love, joy, peace, harmony, forgiveness. Those were the 5 things I mentioned to my parents that were lacking in our environment. That pivotal truth for me was like, I'm standing my ground, I'm not looking back, and I'm going forward no matter what. That perspective enabled me to make that move and to move out and begin life on my own. And then I did it again with the church group when I was 36, 37, and did the same thing. I'm 46 now. So pivoting and saying that this no longer feels right. This does not feel true. I believe there's more for my life. I don't know what it all is. It feels really scary. I'm going to lose everyone and everything I've ever known when I make this choice, but I know is the right choice for me. And so that choice of being resilient, no matter who agrees with me or doesn't agree with me, who accepts me or doesn't accept me, who believes in me or doesn't believe in me, I'm doing what I'm doing for me, and I will be resilient no matter the challenge that comes my way, to stay focused on truth and to pursue these things that, like I said, I wanted. So that transformation is being willing to look at the challenges and not let it defeat you. Looking at how is this, it might tear you apart financially, emotionally, mentally, physically, relationally. There's a lot of ways that making these kinds of decisions can really impact your life and uproot you completely. Mm-hmm. But when you're focused on eliminating distractions, you know what is important and you believe in it with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, that helps you to be empowered to be resilient.
So would you say it was worth it? And now there's this new sense of freedom as you get to own who you are and you get to create those boundaries and you get to create your life as you see it?
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. I have a completely different life, completely different paradigm. Yes, I'm grateful for the skills and impact that religion and my parents gave me as a foundation in many things, but there's many things that they created that have made traumatic experiences and traumas that I've had to work through in deconstructing my beliefs, what's right, what's wrong, what's true, what's really God, what's not God. But the circumstances, every last one of them, being willing to face them fully and completely is what's rewarding. Because if you're only holding on to what you believe because of someone else, is it really yours? When you know and you've done the work to figure out, this is my belief and this is why I feel like this and this is the truth that's come out of my experience, you're a lot stronger person. You're a lot more, you're able to help other people. You're not going through life being a martyr or just being a yes man or yes woman. You're actually in tune to who you are and what you believe and why, and it fulfills your purpose and your meaning of life because you know those answers that nobody else can answer for you anyway. But they like, culturally, I think when you and I did our interview, I mentioned this, we're taught from a young age, if you get 5 stars, you can move from first grade to second grade. And then if you get good grades, you can move from, high school to college. Great GPA, you're going to get a better degree and get a better job. And then you get a better pay and promoted. And then you're looking for a marriage and a house and all these things. And if you make enough money and you have good credit, well, then you get approved for a house. Everything in our whole structure is based on if you meet all the rules and regulations, you will be approved of, you'll receive acceptance, and then you'll be promoted and you're a good person. And I think a lot of times by the time people get in their 40s, they're deconstructing all that because, it's frustrating to spend your whole life working for something. And maybe you've had bankruptcy or other things come into your life, a car wreck then impacted your ability to work and make money. And now you're not financially where you were and you can't get a house and you can't get this. And so you start looking at, why do I have to go through all these hoops to have a successful life? And how can I navigate this and be resilient and not let all these outward things destroy me and ruin me?
Yeah. I love how you're talking about success, because I think the world we're moving into is honoring more of defining your own definition of success. What is success for you? Because no paths are really linear anymore, or very few are. And we need to embrace the unique value that those different paths have for everyone. And you're also hitting something I want to talk about how do we honor our children instead? How do we help them be resilient as they grow instead of feel different if they're not able to follow a linear path? I think we generally give that as a safety and a guideline, and we want some values and principles given to them. But how do we honor them as individuals and let them know that failure isn't fatal, that life is going to have hardships, or it may not turn out exactly the way that you thought, but it can still be good?
Well, let me do a disclaimer. I'm not a parent. I've had no kids. But from, teaching and doing the work on myself, I would say it starts with a couple things. One, as a parent, you would have to model that failure is okay. And I think not hiding your mistakes and failures. A lot of parents hide their money issues. They hide they lost a job. They don't tell their kids. And then, months later, they learn dad has a new job, but, they don't know why. They don't know anything. They keep everything a secret. I think there needs to be more transparency between parents and children. The other thing is, I think giving your children permission to fail and not be hard on them and punish them and create an environment that makes them feel like they're bad because they made a mistake. Let them see that, like simple things, we do it easily on certain elements, like say riding a bike, you're going to fall, but when you fall, get back up, brush off your knee. It's a scrape. If it needs a Band-Aid, we'll put that on there and you can keep going, right? Versus we are around people, whether they're bosses or parents or friends. Why did you do that? Like a lot of harshness, a lot of criticism and judgment. And I think that doesn't help people learn how to be resilient. It makes them more fearful and it causes them to question what's truth and then to always feel like they're never going to measure up. So why try? We need opportunities where we actually can do this and fall flat on our face.
Absolutely. I think we do a disservice when everyone gets a trophy. Like we don't get to see the point of hard work, or if we pick them up every time, they don't learn resilience because they think you're going to pick them up every time. So I think that really speaks to the parenting aspect. From the experience we had with our parents, we know how we would want to do it differently, the patterns we would like to break. And I'm striving to do that with my own, but I never expected to do it alone. So it's still different. I still have to be like, okay, well, what do I do with what I have now? And how can I still be a good parent? How can I do it differently, even though this isn't ideal? Although what is ideal anymore? What is normal anymore? There are many broken homes, many divorcees, many single parents, and we're all having to adapt to how do we still raise healthy, resilient children despite all of this adversity around family units and around differences and around separation and cultural problems and just a lot of noise in the world that's trying to keep people down and depressed and not try to raise up to their full potential and their full light. And I love how you spoke about that. If you could,
I'd like to elaborate one more thing on that. I'd like to elaborate is culturally how you and I were raised in such a religious sphere. the idea is to create everybody agreeing in a box. And so I think as parents, if you can foster, allow them to have a different belief than you, allow them to want something different than you, and have discussion and curiosity. Why do you feel this way? Why does that interest you? Instead of making it, this is the way that's right, this is the way that's wrong. Like, we've had so much hard things that to allow a child to come into their own truth. Many times parents are raising their kids to have expectations and do things they didn't get to do in their childhood, or that are their dream for their kid instead of their kid's dream, whether that's ballet or football or basketball or piano or flute or anything else, right? They want them to be a doctor. They want them to do this. The family's always had doctors. So then you start creating an environment where the kid feels the only way they're going to be accepted and loved and appreciated and valued and respected and wanted is if they meet all these long lists of criteria. So allowing the child to choose things that don't really matter, not really, and let them find their way. And even if they say, oh, I want flute, and then a year later, I don't like flute, and they throw it on the ground and they smash it to pieces, I want piano now, like whatever it is, like allow them to figure out, why were they attracted to flute? Was it because their best friend did flute, so they wanted to do flute? Or was it because inside they really liked flute and they liked that music? Giving them the opportunities to explore and figure out the difference between their head and their heart and how to make that in congruence to the purpose and passion they have for their life, and not something that's fleeting, and a rage right now. And then in a year from now, is not even going to be something they want, helping them figure out and in tune, what are they drawn to? Like my brother was always drawn to airplanes, right? Why was he always drawn to it? And then help them cultivate those things that you as a parent see them having a deep passion for.
Yeah, I absolutely support that 100%. And I think what you're touching on is intention. What was the intention? It's a great level of awareness that a youth should understand about, why did you make that choice? Because I think a lot of them too, they're either trying to fit in society or in their friend group or in their family, and they're trying to figure out who they are. And they sometimes don't get the guide of, you get to decide. How did you feel about that? Instead of, oh, that made me feel good, thank you. And those kind of things that you're talking about, the outside validation. And we live in a world that's trying to really get people almost addicted to instant gratification and outside validation with a like or not a like, or how many followers do I have, or all these things. And it's really crippling our youth in the way of not just knowing they're enough as the unique individual as they are. They don't have to have the huge following. They don't have to have the likes. They can just find their own truth and live it. And yes. I would love to hear your perspective on, how do we bring this out more in society, not just in our families, but how do we contribute to our communities in a way that we can speak truth, give truth, encourage truth, so more people can be free to live that authentic, resilient life?
Well, in my TED Talk, I say the definition of authenticity is to be open, real, raw, and vulnerable. So I think as parents or as entrepreneurs or as leaders of any level, we've got to be open, real, raw, and vulnerable. That means being able to discuss the hard things, and not just so on social media or in conversations and parties and gatherings that we have everything together. Being willing to talk about the hard stuff. I've had a hard day. When somebody says, how are you? Don't say fine if you're not fine. Be willing to share your truth. Your truth is, I'm having a hard day. It's been a difficult season, but I'm not giving up. That's fine to reinforce it, but not the toxic positivity, and not a guardedness that you can't let down your walls and expose the real reality that's going behind the scenes. I think as leader, whoever that you follow or think is amazing, most of these people are not going to discuss what's going on behind the scenes until they've gotten through it and they feel they can teach it, which I think leads to this false paradigm that we have of people not thinking they can talk about their pain and show that they're being resilient through the process, not just resilient on the other side of it, but in the moment, show people when you're facing cancer, bankruptcy, a breakup, a miscarriage, whatever it is that you're going through, that it's really hard. And there's days I have my doubts, and there's days that I'm rock solid in my faith. There's days I believe I can do this, and there's days I don't. And show that. And it doesn't mean you're bipolar or anything else. It means you're human and you're figuring out your path to embrace your pain and not let the limitations hold you back to be that resilient person you want to be.
I think this is so important in the world we're stepping into with so much technology and AI taking over things and less connection. We want that human connection, and we need to connect to each other in our common humanity. We are human. We are flawed. We are always a work in progress. There's always more work to do. We're never done. There's no such thing as perfect or I've arrived. Maybe I've accomplished a goal and I have a new one, and that's great, but it's not done. And everyone at some point is going to have a struggle. At some point, something is going to come into your life to help you grow and to learn. And that's what this is all about, is progress for each of us. And if we can do it resiliently, even better, because then we'll bounce back faster and stronger every time that we come through, and we'll step more into our truth. We'll be more authentic, and we'll be able to live in a way that is in alignment with ourselves and our values and what lets us shine bright. So
I think that's part of it too, right there. What you're saying is people aren't really in tune to their core values. So if you don't know your core values, you can't live and breathe and be them, which is going to make you struggle to be resilient. And being resilient doesn't mean that you don't have pressure, you don't have conflict, that there isn't frustration, that there isn't doubts, or lack of peace. It means that through it, you still are determined to walk forward, to find the light in the dark tunnel, to believe that there is an answer because every problem has a solution. Those kinds of things, I think, are the foundation of helping one create resilience. Resilience isn't being a martyr. It isn't saying that life is just peachy when it's hard. It's having that courage, no matter the circumstance, the season, the trauma, the problem that's come up, that you are willing to stay engaged and not decompress to numbing or other types of things to bypass what you're energetically feeling, but to believe within all your heart and mind that you can have faith and that there is going to be a way out through this.
What are some of the skill sets, techniques, and strategies that you teach that help people be authentic and resilient and live their truth?
I start with, where are you hiding? Where are you saying there's things you can't talk about on social media or share with your friends? Where are you timid or fearful about being open, real, raw, and vulnerable? And we start there, because until they know themselves and they understand who they are and why they respond the way they do, they're not really ready for an outside in perspective. And so I start with that. Other things is looking at the painful seasons in the past that they've been through and had success and are beyond, and looking at how painful was that? What did you experience? And what did you learn from it? How did it bring a gift or a blessing into you? When you have that leverage to look back at prior times and seasons in your life that were landmarks, pivoting points to something further, losing a job, a breakup, or something, whether even it was 10 years ago, and it's probably a lot more vague in your life right now. Like, it probably doesn't even feel hardly painful compared to what you're going through now. But at the time, it was the worst thing you'd ever been through. So looking at some of those experiences and seeing, where did you accept it? Where did you choose to fight no matter how hard it got? And what action steps did you take? It doesn't mean you don't have your days in bed where you pull the pillow over your head and cry and sob and you don't know how you're going to make it. It's being able to do those things and illuminate the path that you're going to get up the next day and you're going to try again. And so some of it is looking at where has those painful experiences in your past brought more strength, character, hope, and diligence to keep fighting no matter how hard it gets.
I believe what you're talking about is connecting to your why in a lot of ways. And you do have to know your core values before you know your why. So those do build on each other very, very well. I find I have to connect to my why, my mission statement, or what it is I'm doing almost every day, just to not lose that focus and make sure I'm in alignment. So I see that as a very powerful tool.
Yeah, and I actually help them dig deeper into looking, what is it you want? Because when you know what it is you want, then you figure out why. If you just start with why, and a lot of people, I want to live a legacy. Well, if you really study a legacy is for you. There's people that benefit from it, but the legacy is you. You are the legacy. You are the one that's creating a name for yourself, for your kids, for your friends. Like, you are the one that's known. Mother Teresa is known for her. She left a legacy, but she's the one that created the legacy. So in this process of turning your pain into power, you've got to first be willing to like look at the heartfelt part inside. Why do I believe this? And then what am I going to do to honor this belief and live it?
What's the most powerful transformation that you've seen with the people that you work with so far?
I mean, it's very life-changing to be working with somebody who might be on the verge of a divorce and who's willing to look at their life with a different perspective and salvage a marriage, salvage a home without further turmoil. Those kinds of people who are willing to embody the work and not just talk about it, but actually vulnerably open up and really do introspective work inside themselves to see where they've been hiding from themselves, where they have impersonated being somebody else really, and not really their true selves, and help them to understand how to learn these methods. Like all of us is naturally, when we go into a room, are looking to see, are we going to be accepted? How are we received, let alone perceived? Those are two different things. We want to be received well. We also want to know that the message we're giving or the things that we're doing are also being perceived in congruence to who we are and not as something different. So learning how to listen to the still small voice inside of you when something starts feeling off, stop then instead of keep forcing through it, so that you end up doing or saying or being something that you really don't want to be, but you're going along with the crowd, or you don't feel you can stand up and really say, no, I don't agree with that. So you're just going to raise your hand. I agree. Like, when are these things where you got that edgy feeling inside of you that's really not truth for you, but you keep fighting through anyway, because collectively, to maintain allegiance to the group or the collaboration or the friendship, you're not going to say anything.
How can you tell when someone's not in alignment? Like, do you have kind of a meter of when you can tell when they've lined themselves up and they are speaking truth, and or when they're not being honest with themselves versus when they are? Can you kind of see that in their body language, in their eyes, or how do you gauge that so you can help them find it themselves?
Yeah, I help them realize where they contradict themselves many times verbally. They'll say one thing they want, but then they'll follow it up with something else. And then energetically, a lot of times they're having to explain themselves more deeply than they really need to, versus just saying the truth. They elaborate and they're trying to make it all seem like this is what I'm trying to tell you, instead of just coming out and saying it. And so helping them see that, like, you're still dancing around it. You're not owning your truth and standing up and saying, this is what I believe. And I'm grateful for this conversation. I'm willing to let you have your own opinion and have my own opinion, but this is how I see things, and be okay with the relationship not being on the same page if that's where it ends up. Most people are still wanting a deep connection. They want somebody to like them and value them and appreciate them. And so they work so hard at trying to get that people pleasing, right? That element of support. And they don't see how they're not actually living from who they say they are, whether it's core values, whether it's their truth, whether it's the things that they say they really want. Many times people will say one thing and they do something else. So connecting the dots of where they can see they said this, but they did this. What were they thinking when they said it? What were they thinking when they did this? And why is there a disconnect? Helping them put the puzzle pieces together. I can tell them, you said this and you did this, and this is why there's a disconnect, because I've worked with you for a while and I've seen these things, versus helping them come to it on their own. My goal is to help them come to it on their own so they really start seeing that in themselves, and then have a skill that they can use.
Yeah, it sounds like the difference between an old story and a new story that they're trying to step into in a way, and then make that coherent and step into that identity. That's the one that fits. That is the truth, what they really want and where they really want to go with their lives. And being a coach myself, it's fun to see that transition in a way, because when someone finally steps into their power and they take off, they just take flight and they soar. And it's the most beautiful thing to watch. Like, butterfly is such a good example. Phoenix rising from the dust. Those are the visuals that I always get. And just knowing that that's possible for anyone, no matter what your circumstance is, if you find the right coach to work with. And I will say sometimes, you got to find the right fit. You definitely have to find the person who you resonate with and you feel safe enough with to do that kind of deep work. But once you do, it can make results you would never get on your own, and fill in gaps that you just can't fill in on your own. We think we can do it on our own. And as someone who lone wolfed it for too long myself, like, it made such a difference when I found community, when I found the resonance and the right vibration of people and energy to be around. And now I would never look back, and I don't even recognize who that other person was anymore. And so it's an amazing, the work that we get to do and the things that we get to see in people. So
and I try to really help them understand that you use the analogy of the butterfly, that you're moving from a cocoon into something that's beautiful. And there's going to be a lot of ooey gooey mess. And so embracing that hardness, that difficulty, that challenge is how you get to the beautiful part. And to enjoy the process, not to be so focused on becoming a butterfly that you can't see yourself evolve.
Yeah, because there should be joy on the journey. You should be able to enjoy the process and honor the struggle, as one way I've heard it put. And know it's just going to be worth it in the end, and it will, and you can do it. And I think that's the main thing. We as coaches are there is to cheer and to push and go, yes, you can do this. You can achieve this. You can have what you want. Well, thank you so much. I love this discussion that we've had today, and I'm sure we'll have you back again with all your knowledge and depth of experience and empathy that you have for this work. But if someone was wanting to work with you, what do you have currently going on? Where can they find you and see your TED Talk and those kind of things?
Yeah, so TED Talk is on the YouTube channel for TEDx, The Art of Authenticity, How to Show the Real You, or just put my name in, it should come up. Usually it's the first or the second, depending on the algorithms. I'm on all social media platforms under my name, Misty W. Gilbert. I'm most active in socializing and conversing on Facebook, but I post to all platforms. They can reach me at mistywgilbert.com. There's a contact thing. I do also have a Calendly link where they can book a call with me. It's called a Sharing Each Other's Lives call, where we can talk about anything. It could be coaching, non-coaching. It's free. I'd give one away a year to a person. So you can book a call there. And if you want to look into transformational coaching, we can have a call about that too, see where you're at, what you're looking to do with your life, and if we're a good fit for working. I don't believe everybody's always a fit, but I like to support anybody and everybody and give a chance for you to be seen and heard and see what we can do to transform your life. I always ask my coaching clients, what would you do today if you were not afraid? And so I would leave that question for your audience is, what would you do today if you were not afraid? Follow-up question would be, what would it look like if you would show the world the real you?
Oh, I love that. What a perfect place to bring this all to a close for being authentic, real, and resilient. And we'll see you all next time at the next episode of the Resilient Mother podcast. Have a great day.